with investigations. Arul Kanda is President and CEO of One Malaysia Development Berhad, who joins us live on the line from Kuala Lumpur this morning. Arul, appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for joining us. 1MDB, of course, has been attracting worldwide attention for some time now. A lot of water under the bridge, a lot of allegations of wrongdoing, which have been made, all of which have been denied by 1MDB. Now, before we get to any of those details, can I ask, why have you decided to talk to us now?
Well, good morning, Martin, Ariel. Thank you very much for having me on the call. I'm really excited to be talking to you. I think, first of all, we've been completely transparent in relation to 1MDB. And over the past 3 years, since I joined the company in January 2015, we have been constantly and openly explaining the issues with the company. As you know, we have publicly traded bonds totaling about $7.75 billion, give or take. And therefore, this is a great opportunity for us to repeat and reinforce our message to the investment community, whom I have no doubt tune in to watch your show on a regular basis.
One high-profile accusation in particular, of course, was made against the Prime Minister Najib. You've said no money was remitted to the Prime Minister. Domestic investigations have also cleared the Prime Minister of any wrongdoing with relation to 1MDB. On the domestic front, do you consider this case closed, or can we expect further investigations or further legal action?
Well, in Malaysia, as you know, the central bank has completed its investigations on the company and has imposed an administrative compound on 1MDB. The Public Accounts Committee, which has 14 members, out of which 5 are opposition members, including the biggest critic of 1MDB, Tony Pua, has also issued its report, over a 100-page report on 1MDB, based on the Auditor General report, Auditor General investigation on the company. So what we have currently ongoing in Malaysia is the investigation, so we'll have to see the outcome of that.
Arul, this is Martin. Let me quickly jump into the question. The investigations that O was talking about, they started as civil ones. Those have been left on the back burner. Now the proceedings have become criminal. How concerned are you?
Well, first of all, let's be clear. These investigations in the U.S. are very specific in relation to seizure of particular assets and in relation to certain named individuals. So 1MDB is not a part of those investigations. We are not a subject of the inquiry. From our perspective, our doors are always open. The company, we've expressed that many times. We're ready to cooperate with any of these investigations, whether domestic or internationally. Until today, the company's not been contacted. I think what's more important for your viewers to understand is that in 2015, we laid out a rationalization plan in order to monetize assets over time and meet the company's debt obligations. I'm very proud to say that 1MDB has not defaulted on any of its payment obligations. We continue to service the debt. The rationalization plan is on track. The company is stable, and we look forward to continuing to perform to that plan.
Arul, I want to talk to you about rationalisation, but before we go to that point, can I just confirm that at this stage you are not, 1DB is not, members of 1MDB are not communicating with any of the international investigators at this point?
That's quite right. So the company has not been contacted by the DOJ, and therefore, whilst we remain open and we've expressed our willingness to cooperate, at this point in time, none of those international authorities have contacted 1MDB.
Arul, while the Prime Minister, Najib Razak, as well as your outfit, 1MDB, have both denied any wrongdoing in this whole scandal, the Prime Minister has acknowledged and even admitted that there were governance issues at 1MDB. I'm sure you remember him saying that. My question to you is, in terms of governance, what improvements, material improvements, have you made on your watch? You've been on the job for 3 years, one. And two, the big 3 international audit firms have quit or stopped auditing 1MDB between 2009 and 2016. Who is auditing 1MDB now?
Okay, I'll answer the second question first. Our current auditor is a company called Parker Randall. So it's a coalition of international firms, of which they have a Malaysian operation. Now, in relation to your earlier point, let's be clear. The Public Accounts Committee of the Malaysian Parliament issued a report on 1MDB in April 2016. Amongst the findings of that report was, first of all, 1MDB had a poor business model where there was an over-reliance on debt. The PAC itself, which has 9 ruling party members and 5 opposition members of parliament, highlighted that governance at 1MDB was poor, the management was weak, oversight by the board of directors should have been better. So Mr. Najib was really just referring to the findings of this bipartisan committee of parliament in relation to 1MDB. So we have been very open and transparent about the issues at the company. What's more important is that the 1MDB challenges have actually been politicized by the opposition in Malaysia. And the opposition, over the last 3 years have been trying to use this business issue, they've politicized a business issue to topple a democratically elected government. Now, unfortunately for them, the rationalization plan has been successful. Under my watch, we have disposed of assets. We have transferred ownership of other assets to the Ministry of Finance so they can be independently developed of 1MDB. For example, the Tun Razak Exchange, which has just attracted HSBC as an anchor tenant, Prudential Insurance, and where we've signed a joint venture with Lend-Lease to jointly develop 17 acres of land. So despite the negativity in the words of the opposition, the business community and the international investment community have looked beyond the issues. They're satisfied with the transparency and the openness of the company and have now committed to invest in projects that were originated by 1MDB.
Arul, a two-part question for you here. As we stand right now, what is the net worth of 1MDB's assets and also its debt? And do you see a point in time where 1MDB will need to be financially supported by the central bank?
Right. First of all, 1MDB is a company owned by the government of Malaysia, so there is no question of the Central Bank of Malaysia having to support the company. Where we are today, Ariel, is that in terms of assets, we are just shy of about $11 billion of assets, just shy of that. And in terms of the debt, it's approximately $7.75 billion. So the assets of the company are higher than the debts of the company. Now, at the same time, as I mentioned to you earlier, we have transferred substantially a lot of the assets out to be independently administered, and as a result of those asset transfers, 1MDB will be receiving cash flows as payment for the asset transfers. Those cash flows are being matched to the debts of 1MDB. Accordingly, from a company perspective, we have no financial issues. We've met all our debt obligations in full and on time, and we foresee being able to do that right up to the maturity of the last debt in the company.
Arul, when do you foresee the debts being paid and the fund actually being wound up?
Well, in terms of legal maturity, the last bond that we have matures in 2039. But of course, depending on the pace and speed of asset development and ability to conduct any management exercise on those bonds, the debt could be repaid earlier.
Arul, what are your plans? What do you expect to be doing post the election?
Well, I think no other corporate CEO in Malaysia has undertaken, struggled and juggled with what I've had to do, right? Dealing with a major corporate restructuring, dealing with government, dealing with opposition politicians, being accessible to investors and to the media, and at the same time going on roadshows around the country to explain issues on 1MDB. So my honest answer is I'd like to take a nice long holiday after this 1MDB job. But having said that, I've given it all over the last 3.5 years. to rationalize the company. I'm very proud that, the company is now on a stable footing. The rationalization plan is successful. I've served not just the company, but also my country. And I think, any announcement on my future is really for the board and the shareholder, which is the government of Malaysia, to make at the appropriate time.
Arul, we very much appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for coming to chat to Martin and myself here on Street Signs.
And head on to our digital